people from the CIA, from the NASA, the space industry, DOD, all these intelligence agencies are knocking on our door and saying, hey, what's going on here, right? It doesn't just happen all the time.
What's going on here?
Right. Like,
what was that like when how old were you when that first happened?
It's funny because I'm actually the first one in the house who met anybody from NASA, because Dad was away at work and I was home playing like Fallout 3 or something. This summer, I distinctly remember, I was home. It was summer, so I was just home during the day. I'm only 15 years old. I don't have a job. So I'm just like playing games, right? And, there's a ring at the door, and it's Hal Povenmire. I know they talked about him quite a bit on your last session, but it was me who answered the door. And I just remember being like, oh, here we go, because the documentary had already been filmed. I don't think it aired yet. We're having all these experiences. So I'm like, Mom, NASA's here, and we seriously. And call Dad, and I'm like, Dad, there's somebody from NASA here. And he's like, just entertain him till I get home. And the rest is history, But this guy hopped in the car, drove 12 hours from Cape Canaveral just for a chat. And he was in our lives until the day he died, which I actually just listened to the episode. So I know he told that story, how he fell and hit his head and he had the coma. Same guy.
How?
Yeah. Yeah. But until that day, he was intimately in our lives until he died.
That day Hal showed up, how old were you?
15. Maybe 16.
Do you remember specifically what he was saying and what he was asking and why? Like, why did he tell you he was there and how did he find out about you?
Yeah. So the funniest part is, and Dad would never tell this detail because he wasn't there. I was the one that answered the door. And I suspect he did this on purpose because he was a covert kind of individual. I think the idea was kind of look dumber than you are, kind of put on a little bit of an act. And he was a little bit of a joker. He was really funny because he constantly would just crank out jokes. And they weren't like good ones either. Right. He clearly had a persona. It was an act. I've come to understand. And he was a genius, but he kind of acted a little bit clueless. It was funny as fuck, man. And he opens, he rings the door and I answer and he says, hello, is this the residence of Chris Bledsoe? And I said, do you mean Bledsoe? He said, yeah, Chris Bledsoe. And he's acting like he's looking at his paper, like he's trying to read the name. And I'm like, yes. And he shows me his lapel and it's NASA. And he's like, well, I'm with the press corps for NASA. I drove 12 hours from Cape Canaveral. I really was just hoping to have a conversation with your dad. I just wanted to ask some questions and, just things like that. And I don't remember in that moment what we talked about, but I know over the next many years what we talked about up until he died. I do know that he was at some point he was a CIA analyst.
Really?
Oh, yeah, dude. A lot of these people are double dipping.
He was CIA and NASA?
Yeah. At one point. Something he told my dad before he passed away. It was kind of like a confession, like, I don't have much longer. I want to tell you a little bit more about me before I'm gone kind of thing, But he was a very cool guy. He was hilarious. He was so intelligent that he had 3 PhDs by the time he was like a teenager.
Can you look him up, Steve? We could pull up his Wikipedia and look at him. So we can show some people what this guy looks like.
He was a really cool guy. He's one of the very first people at NASA. I mean, he was an intern for Wernher von Braun.
Really?
Yeah.
Harold.
Yeah, that's him. Click his obituary. You might see us in it. You might.
Oh wow!
I know we were in his video, and he was a very kind soul. And
you want to play his video?
I swear we're in it. I could be remembering wrong, but I feel like I just recently watched it.
And loving. Oh, we don't have. There's no audio here.
Oh yeah.
That's okay.
I haven't routed it yet.
That's okay. We can look at it.
He was a funny dude. He was so intelligent.
1939 he was born. Holy smokes.
Yeah, he was like one of the young interns when Wernher von Braun was. He would be like in the same room as him. Wow. That's how far back he goes. And then there's this individual named
pull up his Wikipedia or something. We can read about his history at NASA or what he did, what his accomplishments were. Does he have a Wikipedia?
That book, UFOs and Alien Abduction Phenomenon, we're in it.
Is that his book?
Uh-huh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we're actually in it.
There's no like official sort of
Meaning of minor planet names. Meteoroid. Well, I can look up, and we can see a picture of them at least.
Yeah, that's him.
it's young Hal.
Yeah. So he was a
Yeah, there's nothing that like
It goes
there's
right-
nothing
right
legit
goes
here that
obituary.
I
like,
swear you got to skip through the obituary, man, because I feel like we're in it. I could have sworn we are.
I want to read some stuff like about like what he did.
Well, yeah. So do you know Project Blue Book?
Yeah, of course.
He was like the right hand man of that. Alan J.
Really?
Yeah, Hynek.
He worked with Hynek?
He was like his protege.
Oh, wow.
He was the guy that dropped in and did the debunking. So he shows up to our door, you know, reading his, is Chris Bledsoe here? He's playing us, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But over
He's
time,
just fishing for information, trying to figure you guys out.
exactly, fishing for holes, and he couldn't find them.
So he was there specifically to figure out if you guys were full of shit or not.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
right,
he was the guy they dropped in to find the holes in the story. And
So he said, okay, so you said he was visiting you guys for years after that.
until the day he died, he was supposed to be driving to our house to spend Thanksgiving with us, and he didn't show up, and we're like, oh, well, you know, something must have come up. And then the next day we get a call from his wife, Katie, and she said basically he fell and hit his head and he was in a coma. But he was like, we were expecting him at our house, you know. So and that's
What did he say to you about this whole phenomenon?
Well, he said more to my dad than he said to me. I mean, you know, I was younger. I think he let a lot more out to dad, but he knew it was spiritual. He indicated to my dad that it may be his family.
Yeah.
The beings, the entities, you know. Now, here is something that I find particularly wild. But in about 2008 or 9, I would have been like 15 or 16 years old. Something he said to me and my family that for many years I've been paying attention to in my mind is that by the year 2025, the disclosure rollout would be on the table. All those years ago, 2008 or 2009, he said, the government's disclosure plan is going to be out on the table by 2025. And this is what he's saying. He said, and we're going to do it through soft disclosure, meaning there's going to be like a steady drip of information so as to not shock people. It's going to be like little bits of information coming out over a long span of time.
Right.
But, you know, that we should know pretty much the majority of everything by 2025. He told me that when I was a kid.
What do you think the disclosure is gonna look like? Like, do you think that if there is government disclosure about this stuff, it's gonna be 100% accurate?
No, actually the opposite.
How so?
I think it's going to be more or less fear-based.